Hi there, it's Natasha, and today I have a card featuring 3 of these flower dies from AliExpress. I will also be using a stamp set from Your Next Stamp called What Not Sentiments 9, and from that stamp set I'm going to use the You Are Amazing. I'm going to put the stamps onto an acrylic block and stamp it in some VersaFine Onyx Black ink. This is my go-to ink for stamping sentiments. It stamps really well the first time and nice and dark, and I'm just going to prime it and test it out first because I haven't used these stamps before. Stamp it down, and then I'm just going to use some low-tack tape, and in this case that is post-it note tape, to hold down these dies whilst they're being run through my Cuttlebug machine. Getting it ready, and then I change my mind slightly and want to shift the largest die just a little bit and then run it through. For the card base of this card I'm going to be using some Nina Solar White 110 pound card, and for the front panel of the card I always use Nina Solar White 80 pound cardstock. I'm just going to be careful removing those flowers because they're going to be replaced back onto my project. And here I'm just marking out the top, bottom and left and right of where each flower will sit through my card base. I'm going to be using some Distress Oxide inks to ink up this card, and the yellow is the Fossilized Amber, the blue is Broken China, and the pink one is Worn Lipstick. I'm just erasing some of the pencil marks and then putting the ink on. The ink will look like a bit of a hot mess from behind the card on the card base, but the card front will go on top and no one will be any the wiser of what it used to look like underneath. So I'm just putting the card front on every now and then to check that I have covered all the spots that I need to cover, and putting on plenty of ink and making it nice and dark because I really want the colour to pop out from underneath the flowers. So I must say I really like the card as is from here, and I probably could have gone in a different direction. I might even make another card myself, not on film, but and yeah, I quite like where this card was going. But anyhow, I've gone in a different direction, so I'm using some double-sided tape. This is just an unbranded double-sided tape, and this card will be adhered down flat onto the card base because I will be adding a little bit of dimension later on, so I just want this one to go on flat. Take off all of the release paper and then adhere it down evenly, and as I said, looking at the card, I quite like the look of it here, but anyhow, I got a little ink smudge, so I'm just using my Tombow Mono eraser to get rid of the little ink smudge on the white cardstock. And then in my previous haul video I had showed that I had that red clear foam tape that I had purchased on AliExpress. However, I did remember that I had some Cool-Tac foam, and that is the clear adhesive, and it is in tiny little squares. And I thought that cutting the squares in half would be probably easier than cutting each little piece off that big roll of tape. So I did, as you can see, I just cut a roll of squares and a line of squares, and then I am attaching each one to about every second or so petal. I probably did around 3/4 of the petals on each flower. And then for the smallest flower I had to cut the squares in thirds because those little petals are tiny, and I wanted the adhesive to be closer into the center of the flower rather than the outside so that they popped up nicely. So this was pretty fiddly to do, especially the little flower. I ended up mucking around with it for ages, but that's okay, it took me a little bit. And so I'm just taking off all of the release paper from the clear foam tape, and then I'm just going to use some Ranger Multi-Matte Medium in the center of the flower because the center will go down flat, and then the foam tape will create a little bit of dimension around the petals. So just making sure that it goes back in the right way that it came out. This was a little bit fussy with all of the foam tape, but I think that it was worth it in the end. It is a very clean and simple card today, and I promise I will move on from using these little flowers that I purchased from AliExpress, but I really do like them, and I've used them plenty, so that makes it worth the purchase for sure. So just fiddling and adjusting with all of the little petals to make sure that they are all kind of bent upwards. And then, as I said, this little one, even getting the release papers off took me a minute, but anyhow, it's the final one. Pop it on, and then if you're anything like me, you have a hoard and a stash of all sorts of things, and so I had my buttons out, which is I saw a card similar to this on Pinterest that wasn't using flowers, so that's what inspired me for this card today. And then I'm going to add a coordinating button to each of the center of the flowers, and that's my card for today. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.